The tragedy that shook the small town of Clearfield, Pennsylvania, is a story that few will forget. The Johnson family, which at first glance seemed like an ordinary family, hit a series of tensions that slowly turned into a time bomb. At the center of this story we find three main characters: Anna Johnson, a 17-year-old girl with an unusually close relationship with her father; Michael Johnson, her father, a hard-working and loving man; and Patricia Johnson, Anna's mother, who had been absent for much of her daughter's adolescence due to her problems with alcohol. Michael Johnson, 44, was known in Clearfield as a hard-working, dedicated man. For more than 2 decades, he had been a mechanic at the local garage, a job that allowed him to support his family in relative comfort. Although not a man of many words, Michael had a reputation for being generous, always willing to help neighbors with repairs and community tasks. Anna, his only daughter, was his greatest pride. Ever since Patricia, his wife, had decided to move to a small apartment on the outskirts of the city to deal with her alcoholism, Michael and Anna had become an inseparable team. Anna was a bright girl, with outstanding grades at school and an innate talent for art. She often spent her afternoons drawing at the kitchen table while her father worked in the garage. The relationship between Michael and Anna was, for many, admirable. Since Patricia left, the family dynamic had changed completely. Anna and Michael shared almost everything. Dinners together in the small kitchen, nights watching old movies on the old tube television, and long conversations about life, dreams, and the future. Michael was not only a father to Anna, he was her confidant, her protector, and in many ways, the only adult she fully trusted. Anna had always resented her mother. Patricia, now 41, had been absent for much of her childhood because of her struggles with alcohol. Anna's memories were filled with arguments and nights when her mother would come home late, staggering and screaming. It was Michael who, with patience and effort, had kept the family afloat. But when Anna turned 14, things came to a head. Patricia moved into a small apartment on the west side of Clearfield to try to rehabilitate herself. Although Michael made sure Anna visited her mother occasionally, the relationship between mother and daughter was strained, marked by reproaches and awkward silence. Living alone with her father, Anna developed a deep attachment to him. To Anna, Michael was not just a father, but her everything. He drove her to her school activities, attended all her art exhibits, and listened intently to her every teenage problem. Michael, for his part, was happy to pour all his love and attention into his daughter. Although he had a limited social life, he was content with Anna's company and the home they had built together. From the outside, the Johnson house looked like the epitome of a happy home. The small brick dwelling in a quiet neighborhood was a reflection of a simple but stable life. Anna and Michael had created a routine that worked perfectly for both of them. On weekends, they would spend hours together working in the front yard or fixing minor issues around the house. Michael had even built a makeshift studio in the garage so Anna could comfortably paint. But what seemed like the perfect fit for them began to generate murmurs among the neighbors. Some commented that Anna was too dependent on her father, that her attachment was unusual for a girl her age. While other teenagers went out with friends or explored new relationships, Anna preferred to stay home with Michael. "It's like he doesn't need anyone but his father," said a neighbor. And to some extent this was true. Anna saw Michael as a safe haven in a world that, for her, was chaotic and full of disappointments. Meanwhile, Patricia was trying to get her life back together. Although she had managed to stay sober for almost a year, the damage had already been done. Every time she tried to reach out to Anna, she was met with cold feet. Patricia texted, called, and even tried to invite her over for the weekend, but Anna always found excuses. Michael tried to mediate, encouraging Anna to give her mother a chance, but at the same time, he relished the special connection he had developed with his daughter. It was as if, by distancing himself from Patricia, Michael had found a second chance at being the perfect father. But Michael and Anna's relationship was not destined to remain unchanged. In his attempt to be everything to his daughter, Michael had neglected his own emotional needs. Since Patricia left, he had not attempted to establish any romantic relationships. His days revolved around his work and his daughter. Anna, for her part, seemed content with this situation. For her, her life with her father was perfect just the way it was. There was no room for anyone else. However, problems began to emerge in subtle ways. Anna showed a need for control over her father's decisions. She insisted on planning their weekends together, criticized the few times Michael went out with friends, and showed discomfort if her father mentioned any woman, even casually. "Dad, "You don't need anyone else," she used to tell him with a smile. Michael took it as a sign of affection, not realizing that behind those words there was a darker feeling, the need for exclusivity. On a July afternoon in 2022, Michael received a call that would change the family dynamic. It was a coworker, Linda, a 38-year-old woman who had begun to show interest in him. Although Michael was initially reluctant, Linda convinced him to go out for coffee. When Michael mentioned the invitation to Anna, he expected her to be happy for him. However, Anna's reaction was completely unexpected. "Why do you need to date someone, Dad? Aren't we fine like this?" she said in a tone that was a mix of sadness and reproach. Michael tried to explain that it was just a coffee, but Anna didn't seem convinced. That night, as they ate dinner, the atmosphere was tense. Michael decided not to talk about it anymore, but deep down, he knew something wasn't right. Anna and Michael's relationship had been so centered on their closeness that any attempt at change was perceived as a threat. Although Michael did not openly admit it, he was beginning to feel that Anna's emotional dependence was too intense. Anna, for her part, felt that something in her perfect world was beginning to fall apart. Although she couldn't put it into words, the idea of her father sharing his time, attention and affection with another person was intolerable to her. What neither of them knew at the time was that this initial small conflict would mark the beginning of a series of events that would culminate in an unthinkable tragedy. The bond between Anna and Michael, though seemingly strong, was built on a foundation of unmet emotional needs and a dependency that would soon turn toxic. With Linda's arrival in Michael's life, the balance they had maintained began to falter. In the quiet town of Clearfield, the days of harmony in the Johnson household were numbered. No one could foresee how this seemingly perfect bond would become the catalyst for a tragedy that would leave an indelible mark on all who knew the family. After that first conversation about Linda, Michael began seeing her more regularly. At first, he tried to be discreet so as not to upset Anna. He would tell her that he was going to work overtime or that he had to help a neighbor with his car. However, it didn't take long for the lies to become obvious. Anna was no fool, and after finding messages on her father's cell phone, she confirmed what she already suspected. Michael was dating Linda. This triggered a profound change in the family dynamic. Anna, who had always seen her father as someone devoted exclusively to her, began to feel betrayed. She could not understand why her father, her everything, needed someone else. When Michael finally decided to be honest with Anna, she reacted explosively. It was a Sunday afternoon, and Michael explained that he had been dating Linda for a few weeks and that he wanted them to meet. Anna, upon hearing the woman's name, abruptly stood up from the table and, with tears in her eyes, cried out, "Am I not enough for you, Dad? Do you need to replace me?" Michael tried to calm her down, explaining that Linda was not a replacement, but someone he wanted to share his time with. But Anna was not having any of that. To her, Linda's presence meant that she was no longer the priority in her father's life, and that was something she was not willing to tolerate. As Michael continued his relationship with Linda, Anna began to act more possessively. She monitored her father's schedule, made excuses to call when he was out of the house, and on several occasions, went so far as to make up problems to get Michael to come home early. "Dad, I think I heard a weird noise in the garage. Can you come over? I'm scared," she said in dramatic calls. Michael was beginning to feel trapped. Although he loved his daughter, he also wanted to build something with Linda. But Anna seemed unable to accept this change. The breaking point came when Michael invited Linda to dinner at home for the first time. It was an attempt to bring them closer, to show Anna that she had nothing to fear. But the dinner was a disaster from the start. Anna, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, acted passive-aggressively. She commented out loud that her father had never cooked for her with such care and asked Linda uncomfortable questions about her personal life. "So, Linda, what made you interested in an older man? Don't you have any younger options?" Michael, visibly uncomfortable, tried to mediate, but the tension was palpable. Linda, for her part, tried to remain calm, but it was clear that Anna was not willing to accept her. After that night, Linda confessed to Michael that she wasn't sure she could go on if Anna continued to behave this way. A desperate Michael promised her that things would get better, even though deep down he knew it would be difficult. Anna didn't stop in her efforts to keep Linda out of their lives. She began sabotaging her father's dates in increasingly elaborate ways. One night, when Michael had planned to take Linda out to a restaurant, Anna pretended to be sick, throwing up in the bathroom to ensure that her father stayed home. "Dad, I think I have a fever. I don't want you to worry, "But I feel really bad," she said in a weak voice while touching her forehead with a wet cloth to simulate heat. Michael canceled their plans, something Anna silently celebrated. But Linda began to notice a pattern. Every time Michael tried to spend time with her, an emergency with Anna would arise. "It's like he doesn't want us to be together," Linda told Michael one night. Michael, though hurt, couldn't help but feel guilty. Anna had been his priority for years, and now he felt like he was betraying that bond by wanting something more for himself. The tension in the Johnson household was becoming more and more evident. Anna began to confront her father directly, questioning his decision to date Linda. "Why do you need anyone else, Dad? Am I not enough? We've been fine together. She's just going to ruin everything," she told him with tears in her eyes. Michael tried to reason with her, but the arguments always ended in shouting. Anna became more and more aggressive, and Michael, who had never seen this side of his daughter, began to worry. Desperate to fix the situation, Michael made what he thought was a logical decision. He invited Linda to stay at the house for a weekend so she and Anna could get to know each other better. He thought that by spending time together, Anna would realize that Linda was not a threat. But this move only intensified Anna's resentment. To her, it was an invasion of her space, an even greater betrayal. From the moment Linda arrived, Anna was on the defensive. She barely exchanged words with her, and when she did, they were cutting or sarcastic comments. "I'm so glad you came, Linda. I guess all the good things my dad did for me will be for you now," he said with a smile that didn't hide his anger. Linda, though uncomfortable, tried to be patient. Michael, for his part, tried to keep the peace. But with each passing day, the atmosphere in the house became more tense. The weekend culminated in an evening that would be key to what was to come. After dinner, Michael and Linda retired early to their bedroom. Anna, who had been silently watching them all day, felt her world crumble. While in bed, she heard Michael and Linda talking quietly, and then the sounds began that would confirm her worst fears. They were together. Anna's heart was pounding. Every sound felt like a direct blow to her chest, a confirmation that she had lost the exclusive place she had held in her father's life. What Anna didn't know at the time was that the intensity of her emotions would lead her to make a decision that would change their lives forever. The ideal father-daughter relationship had mutated into something dark and toxic, and that night, in the next room, Anna's anger reached a point of no return. The tension in the Johnson household reached breaking point the night Michael and Linda shared a room under the same roof as Anna. For Anna, the sounds coming from the next room were not just uncomfortable, they were unbearable. Every noise was a reminder of what she had lost, the exclusive attention and affection of her father. Anna tossed and turned in her bed, her thoughts swinging between sadness and anger. She had spent years building what she considered a perfect relationship with her father, and now it all seemed to be falling apart. Tears streamed down her face, but they did nothing to quell the growing sense of rage that was taking over her. As the sounds continued, Anna felt something inside her break. She got out of bed and went down to the kitchen, trying to calm herself. The silence of the house, interrupted only by the noises coming from her father's room, made her breathing become more labored. In the dim light, her eyes fell on a kitchen knife resting in the sink. Her mind was clouded, filled with chaotic thoughts. Her initial intention was not to commit a violent act. She wanted to scare them, to make them understand how much they were hurting her. "I just want them to stop," she muttered to herself as she took the knife with shaking hands. Anna climbed the stairs slowly, each step echoing in her mind like a countdown. Her heart was pounding, but she felt no fear, only a mix of anger and despair. When she reached the door to her father's room, she flung it open, not stopping to think about the consequences. The scene before her paralyzed her for a moment. Michael and Linda, shocked and naked, quickly tried to cover themselves when they saw Anna at the door. Michael jumped out of bed, alarmed, and exclaimed, "Anna, what are you doing? Get out of here right now." But Anna did not answer. At that moment, something in her mind seemed to disconnect from reality. The image of her father with Linda filled her with an uncontrollable rage. Without saying a word, she advanced towards the bed with a knife in her hand. Michael tried to stop her, but Anna, consumed by her rage, attacked him with a violence he had not expected. The first blow was direct to the torso, followed by others in an uncontrolled frenzy. "Dad, why did you do this to me?" she cried as tears ran down her face. Horrified, Linda tried to intervene, but her scream only seemed to enrage Anna further. After repeatedly stabbing her father, she turned on Linda. You ruined everything. He was mine. Linda tried to escape, but Anna quickly caught up with her. Screams filled the house, but within minutes, everything fell silent. When the initial fury had subsided, Anna was left standing in the middle of the room, covered in blood. She looked at the motionless bodies of her father and Linda, and the gravity of what she had done began to sink in. The knife fell from her hand, making a dull sound as it hit the floor. "No! It can't be," he muttered, slowly backing away until he collided with the wall. Anna dropped to the ground, hugging her knees as she began to sob uncontrollably. Images of her father and Linda were still etched in her mind, but now they were mixed with a feeling of absolute emptiness. The first rays of dawn illuminated the Johnson house, now plunged into a deathly silence. It was a neighbor who, noticing that Michael had not gone out as usual, decided to go over. When he got no answer after knocking on the door, he called the police. When officers arrived, they found Anna sitting in the living room, staring blankly, her hands still covered in blood. She offered no resistance as she was handcuffed and escorted out of the house. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. But I couldn't stand it," she muttered as she was led to the patrol car. News of the crime shook the small town. The Johnsons, known for their apparent normality, were now the center of a scandal that seemed straight out of a horror movie. The neighbors could not believe that Anna, the sweet and talented teenager everyone knew, was capable of something so atrocious. Anna's mother, Patricia, was devastated when she heard what had happened. Although she had not been present in her daughter's life for years, she never imagined that the tensions in the family could culminate in this way. "I should have been there. Maybe I could have prevented this," she said through tears to reporters who approached her apartment. During the trial, Anna's lawyers attempted to argue that the young woman had acted under intense emotional and psychological pressure. Experts testified that Anna's extreme dependence on her father, combined with her inability to handle change, had driven her to a state of desperation that culminated in the crime. Prosecutors, meanwhile, portrayed Anna as a manipulative and possessive young woman who was unwilling to share her father with anyone. They showed previous messages and behaviors that demonstrated her rejection of Linda and her obsession with maintaining control over Michael. After weeks of testimony and deliberations, Anna was found guilty of double murder and sentenced to life in prison with a possibility of parole after 25 years. The Johnson tragedy became an emblematic case of how seemingly perfect family dynamics can hide destructive tensions. Anna, once seen as a promising teenager, came to be remembered as the protagonist of one of Clearfield's darkest stories. Although many try to find answers, the reality is that the tragedy was the result of years of repressed emotions and dysfunctional relationships that, in the end, exploded in the worst possible way.